And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore, where we never shut out. We're your hosts, MD and CD. Week 4 is in the horizons. Week 3 is behind us. All right. There were some really, really good football games, some upsets that we saw for sure happen in week 3. And just a lot of, I think we learned a lot about some teams in week 3. I think we did. And I enjoyed the slate. I'm sure people looking at the headliner games of week 3 maybe would disagree with me, but I thought the week 3 games were pretty entertaining for the most part.
It was a ton of power four, right, matchups, cross conference play, some conference play getting into, but also we're learning more and more about some G5 teams and how they're competing and how those conference breakdowns might shake up as well. Super interesting. Like I said, just another data point for us to go off of to make assumptions and to have those assumptions be kind of confirmed, I think, this week and kind of going forward. It was awesome. It was really awesome. Like Matt, they said, yeah, don't let the national media or anyone else fool you. And this is not an elite week of college football. First of all, every week is a great week of college football because there's plenty of football to be played and watched. But yeah, I think it was pretty awesome. I mean, I enjoyed it a lot. Obviously, injury. Newt, obviously, Quinn Ewers goes down for Texas. Arch Manning comes in and looked really good. Obviously, we'll monitor that. Hopefully, Quinn Ewers can come back because obviously that's your new number one team in the AP poll is the Texas Longhorns. First time since 2008, right? Mac Brown, Colt McCoy, Shipley, like that was a long, long time ago. And now Texas is back officially up top college football. How long will it last? We'll see. Obviously, everyone's circling, that October 19th game against Georgia, but they got to go Oklahoma as well before that. So we'll see. But obviously, yeah, I learned a lot this week. Had a great time watching the games.
Yeah, look, here's the agenda today. We're going to talk about some games maybe we didn't preview, right? And some games we liked, some games that maybe we learned some stuff. And we're going to get into our underdog recap, which we had another one. We had another one, and it wasn't even close, quite frankly. It was not even close. And then we'll talk about our best bets recap, and then we'll get right into the games that we previewed and and say what we hit, say what we missed, and yeah, that's gonna be the recap for today. So look, if you like the content, like the video. It's a simple rule that we have here. We appreciate you guys joining us along for the ride. We appreciate you guys hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button, and of course, commenting and interacting with us because we love interacting with you guys. Crazy takes or not, we love hearing what you guys think, what you guys think of what we think. It's all fun here, right? In this community. It's all fun. So we appreciate you guys for that. With that being said, let me bring up the first game I want to talk about. Michigan. I think I learned more about Michigan. I think like I learned that Michigan's offense, not that I wasn't already suspect of it at first, but Michigan's offense is not good with Davis Warren at quarterback. It is not good. They don't have any sort of explosive weapons on the outside. Sure, they're able to run the ball against teams that they have bigger bodies than, right? Khalil Mullings ran for 153 yards and 15 carries. Donovan Edwards ran for another 82, which, by the way, more evidence that Mullings is a better running back than Donovan Edwards. We'll see
Mm-hmm.
eventually if he just takes over that role. I mean, Donovan Edwards didn't even have a rush over 10 yards in his 17 carries. So just saying, Khalil Mullings is pretty good at running back. But yeah, Davis Warren is not good at quarterback. Like, I think you are going to have to bite the bullet. And I think you have to move. And I know that I trust this coaching staff to evaluate the quarterback talent that they have, but there has to be more upside with Alex Orgy, right? I mean, there has to be.
Yeah, and I think what they should have done, and what I was kind of hoping they would do, or expecting them to do, is take your bullets early with Orgy against Fresno State, against Arkansas State, and Texas. Unless you really thought that you were going to be able to compete and beat with Texas, I was hoping that staff had a little bit more self-awareness about Davis Warren and about their team this year and just develop Orgy for a couple weeks. And then once you get to a game like USC, right, this week here, and you could have a chance to win that game, but obviously you have a chance to win at home and your D line and everything else, you have a chance to win that. But you got to figure out this week. And Colson Loveland, is he hurt? Is he healthy? I they sound like there was no update, so we'll see. That's obviously a big time piece because they don't have a ton of wide receivers and their quarterback is struggling. So it's nice to have an All American tight end to just kind of have the ball safety blanket for you. But yeah, I mean, obviously Mullings is a monster, and enough about that. But Timmy McCain, man, Timmy McCain, got to
They
give him credit
had
for
they
fighting.
had one receiver with a catch this past week against Arkansas State.
And
Samaj Morgan
Arkansas State, a
for
team
three
that, by the way,
yards.
is
For three
not very good
yards.
defensively. No.
No, not at all. Not at all. On the Arkansas State side of things, Timmy McClain. I mean, he came in the game late there and kind of provided a bit of a spark. I think moving forward, that quarterback position is going to be something to monitor for Arkansas State. I think both of those quarterbacks are good. And first of all, I think both of those quarterbacks, Michigan would love to have, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yep.
How does
Yep.
Arkansas
Yep.
State have two better quarterbacks than Michigan? That just blows my mind. Blows my mind. So yeah, I'll be monitoring that quarterback position for in the future. So CD, is there any other games you want to talk about?
Yeah. Obviously, Seminole fans, look away. We got to talk about it. There it is.
Boom.
Memphis going on the road and beating former coach Mike Norvell 20-12. And to be honest, was it even that close? I
No.
don't know.
Smothered.
At what
Smothered.
point in the second half did you actually have confidence that Florida State was going to be able to come back and win that football game? I think zero. And it was so frustrating and demoralizing for Florida State fans because, I mean, we talked about it after week zero. It was like, okay, listen, there's they're going to win a bunch of games. They'll go to the bowl game. There's not going to compete for an ACC title or a playoff spot, whatever. Like some people thought they would. Right now, you're looking on absolute stinker watch. Next week, Cal, right? Cal comes across the country to you. Cal's a good football team. Cal's a
Yeah.
very good football team, and I cannot wait to see how that plays.
Are they coming
You
off a
are
bye
looking.
as well?
No, Cal played SDSU
That's right. That's right.
this past weekend and looks pretty good in that. Although Jaden Ott is hurt, so hopefully he's back this week. Regardless, so you got to get right. And for Memphis, dang it, man, we have multiple fun G5 contenders, and Memphis absolutely stamped themselves towards the top because that was an impressive showing. Obviously, Hennigan, we know he's a monster. We know he's a monster. Was hoping they would run the ball a little bit more with a guy like Mario Anderson. Didn't have this success, but we'll see. Obviously, it's Florida State, and they're going to see a lot smaller and less athletic bodies, in the American with their schedule. And there's a lot of winnable football games there. And obviously, to me, it's like with Memphis, it's more about the style points. I think that you're gonna have to earn to beat out a team like Boise State, to beat out other teams, Texas State, other teams in the G5, Northern Illinois, dare I say, that are competing for that one spot. Obviously,
Yeah, I just like you said it after week one, and it still remains true today that Florida State has zero identity on both sides of the football. I thought defensively they showed a bit of a better effort, but there were still times like Memphis's defense, I don't really believe is all that great. I think Memphis is a good team. I talked about them potentially being a top 25 team on my rankings. I actually like the way that they play. I like Seth Hennigan. I like that offense. Um, I I was aghast watching Florida State try to run the football again, and they had some success with Toafili, but he only touched the ball four times. He touched the ball four times. Like,
I mean,
why is DJU throwing the ball 30 times again? Again. There was no rush. And you know what? Watch a team like UCF, by the way, who even when they got down, never abandoned the run game because that's what they do well. And that's what they know they do
identity.
well.
Yeah,
Identity. Identity. Florida State has none. That is none. Done talking
yeah,
about Florida State right now. I'll let you
yeah.
talk
Well,
about it, but I'm done.
real quick, 2 for 12, right on third down. How are you in a football game? Going 2 for 12, three turnovers. That cannot be happening. Like you said, it is not DJU's fault. DJU is who he is. To me, this is on the coaching staff for either A, losing buy-in from the entire football team, or B, not committing to an identity on either side of the football, but especially, like you said, running the football. Are you kidding me? I'm obviously Florida State fans are 10 times more frustrated than I am, but even watching from afar, it is ridiculous. 30 attempts. I know you got down in that second half, but you did not have to abandon what you were supposed to do. What your O line is supposed to be one of your identities, right? Your running back room is supposed to be one of your identities. You have a 250-pound quarterback. I know he doesn't like to run the football, but damn it, he can't throw the ball well. So he better either buckle up and run the ball or talk about a change moving off of him because Something has to change dramatically for them to be able to figure out going into ACC play where they already have two losses, right? Obviously, they get that extra bye week, you know, because of their week 0 game, but you already used one of them and it didn't work because Memphis came out and beat you on your home turf. So, yeah, Florida State, see ya. A lot more contenders in the ACC than Florida State to be worrying about. So, we will see. You got a game? What's next?
Go to the Civil War, which we didn't preview.
No?
Um, Look, the first half, I mean, Oregon State was kind of running the ball effectively. I thought they were moving the ball decently, kind of kept Oregon in check. Second half comes around, right? Just all hell breaks loose. Okay. I mean, it wasn't that Oregon State was like turning the ball over, right? And just giving Oregon chances like that. It was just more like they couldn't get stuff going on offense, and then Oregon had a couple explosive plays. They were able to run the ball effectively with Jordan James. I thought that Dylan Gabriel played his best game of the season. He was efficient. He was effective. Tez Johnson looked good. I mean, just I thought it was an overall solid game from Oregon, and we hadn't seen a front to back game like that from Oregon all season. So I think Oregon once again is a team to look out for. And I don't know that I would have I still had them ranked pretty high on my rankings. I think I had them as like a top 7 team still. I guess in the AP they were 9, so I'm inclined to move them up like a performance after a performance like that. And I don't think Oregon State necessarily. I don't know. Maybe you disagree with this. I didn't think Oregon State played terribly. Right. I thought like if the two games that previously hadn't happened the weeks before, I think the spread would have been well over 20 points. It was not. Based on the way that Oregon was playing, I understood why the line was 15 and a half, and Oregon blew them out. And Dante Moore even got some snaps there at the end of the game. So credit to Oregon. Credit to Oregon.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna echo everything you just said. Absolutely. Moving on to a different game, Georgia at Kentucky. We didn't talk about obviously a game we could have previewed, but with the way Kentucky looked last week, kind of getting embarrassed. It wasn't much to talk about. But listen, to me, my takeaway is Georgia will be fine. I think. Well, here's what I'll say. Georgia has stuff to work on, and it kind of goes back to what I saw at the beginning of the year. And we're looking at their roster. I did not see like elite separators to throw the football down the field. And when you get to a defense, like something we did learn today, Kentucky does have a really good defense. And they flew around and was really impressed with them and how physical they played. Not surprising, but also again impressive to see. But where was I mean outside of Lovett, who was pretty darn good, but even then, like where was the big time separators? Where were guys when you needed to go and score, you could get it done, and you did in that fourth quarter on that one drive. But
Where was the run game?
to me, out
Where has
what
the run game been, by the way, for Georgia? I haven't really seen it all that much. I mean, you saw it with Nate Frazier in the first game, but I'm worried about their run game. Like if they get these leads too, and they don't have these separators, like how are you going to close these games out? And of course, your defense is really good, but like you said, when they play Texas, I'm going to be concerned. I'm genuinely concerned when Georgia has to travel to Austin.
yeah, and that's not something I thought we would be saying, obviously just a week ago. And then on the Kentucky side, listen, I know Brock Vandagriff has struggled the past 2 games, and he didn't look, all super, super impressive against Southern Miss. I know he played well and had good numbers, but he is the guy this year, right?
He
We know
has
it's
to
not
be.
anybody else on that roster. Gavin Wimsatt is terrible. Vandagriff has to figure out there's going to be growing pains. South Carolina and Georgia early in the season were not good, openers for him to kind of get his feet wet in the SEC. Hopefully he gets together because he kind of has a stretch where I'm seeing where until they get to November, like there's some pretty winnable and maybe malleable defenses that they'll be able to play. And so Kentucky looking at making a bowl game, 6, 7, 8 wins, it's absolutely there for them. But things do have to change, obviously, and I know that they know that. But I'm not holding out hope for Brock Griffin this offense, or
Yeah,
I'm not. I'm still holding out hope. Thank you.
yeah, and it never will be an elite offense. Like it won't be this season. Well, we talked about last week. Like after the South Carolina game, I felt I felt better about South Carolina than I felt worse about Kentucky, right? And I think people were ready to write off Kentucky, and I'm like, no, we're not selling our Kentucky stock. This is still a very solid football team on the defensive side of the ball. South Carolina got a couple of advantageous field position opportunities in the form of turnovers, as well as a pick six against Kentucky. And that's where it kind of got out of hand. Brock Vandagriff just takes care of the football. This defense puts in work, man. It puts in work. It's a good football team. I still think, sorry, I still think it's a decent football team. I don't hate Kentucky. I think a team like Florida could struggle against this defense. They get Vandy at home. I think that's a winnable game. I think Louisville, getting them at home, I think that's another winnable game as well. I still think Kentucky can get the 7 wins. I really do believe that. I know I took their over 6.5 wins, and maybe dropping a game to South Carolina hurts in that capacity, but I'm not selling all of my stock on Kentucky. I want to stick in the SEC though. How did Vanderbilt lose to Georgia State? I mean, this is a Georgia State football team. They did not have spring football. They didn't have spring practices because their coach left. Elliott, he's like, I'm going to go take a job at South Carolina's position coach. And then, I mean, look, credit Del McGee and this Georgia State football team for getting it together. But man, after 2 straight weeks where you felt really, really good about this Vanderbilt team, and I'm starting to think more and more just like the Virginia Tech game, not that it was a fluke, but it was like Virginia Tech just was not ready to play in that first half. And you can't just play one half of good football to win a football game, and yeah, I'm a little bit concerned. I mean, this is a huge red flag loss for Vanderbilt where, I thought we both took the over 2.5, and I'm like, oh, so it's going to hit this week.
We could
Awesome.
cash it. We could
And
cash it
we
after 3 weeks, bro.
I was going to go to my spreadsheet and just put it in and be like, awesome, great. Don't have to worry about that the rest of the season. It's not even that Diego Pavia was bad, just the defense. How did Christian Velo throw for 269 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then Freddie I mean, just what happened, man? What happened?
And it wasn't even like these crazy turnover fests where
They
like
got outplayed. They couldn't
they
get off
just
the
got
field on third
outplayed.
down.
Yep. And Georgia State didn't play perfect. I mean, they had, the interception which led to a touchdown, right? They had the missed field goal which led to a touchdown. So like it was it
It
was
could have been worse.
wild. Now it was I will say Vanderbilt did go on the road to Georgia State, but again, should not matter. It should not
Shouldn't
matter.
matter.
Um, I guess I'll stick in the SEC. I got 2 games real quick. The bottom of the SEC, by the way, has not been impressive. Obviously, Vanderbilt had the big win, but to me, Auburn, if you watch that, I mean, if you box score snipe, right? Auburn looked like they played well against New Mexico. They did not. And I was really impressed with New Mexico offensively and how they moved the ball. They had a ton of, miscapitalized spots. You know, obviously their defense is just terrible, right? To be frank, but I still a little bit worried about Auburn. And then Mississippi State, and oh my gosh, getting
Well,
bodied by Toledo.
that was a
Blood
little
everywhere.
that was a little underdog 10 plus point spread sprinkle that we had on this show, and a plus 360. I mean, that thing absolutely smacked. I mean, Mississippi State is bad. They are completely one dimensional on offense, and they have zero identity on the defensive side of the football as well. This is a bad Mississippi State football team. Like you said, the bottom, I think Florida looked horrible, and we'll talk about that. I think Mississippi State looked horrible. Vanderbilt looked horrible. Like, honestly, like, and I was saying this to someone, and they thought I was crazy because, before this week, 6 of the top 7 teams from in the AP poll were SEC teams, but I I don't think top to bottom the SEC is as good as maybe it normally is. I think at the bottom of the SEC, you have some really, really not good football teams. And
Yeah,
obviously normally you say that about Vanderbilt, right? But like I think at the bottom of the SEC, like there are some these are bad football teams or teams that don't know haven't corrected what they need to correct yet. I'm looking at Auburn, Florida, Mississippi State. I mean, I thought Arkansas played well the first 2 weeks, but man, did they look horrible against UAB. Horrible.
I saw that line and I wanted to take that so badly. But even saw the show that I was like, I can't do it because I have no idea how they're going to show up after blowing a game like that with Sam Pittman and Bobby Trina. Like, how are they going to be playing? Yeah, the SEC. When we'll talk more about once we get into November, we're talking about playoff pushes and playoff resumes. Like the SEC at the very top is very deserving, right? But a lot of those resumes are going to get propped up because you are beating up on teams like Florida, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and Auburn. If those, trends continue as they are right now, even Oklahoma has still not been impressive. Although I know Tulane is not a bad football team at all. But
It was
again,
close for a while.
Arnold Arnold had 170 yards. Like what? That's not how I was expecting the season to go, especially for Oklahoma. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't have too many more takeaways. I guess we can go all the way back to Thursday and Arizona State at Texas State. That was a really good football game, a really good atmosphere. Credit Arizona State for getting up off the mat and coming back and winning that football game. And yeah, I mean, that's all I can really say. Obviously, Texas State is going to be a player in the Sun Belt. We all knew that, but credit to them for fighting in that game. And then Arizona State for obviously coming back and getting a win. Again, Kenny Dillingham 3-0. He needed to do it, and he did.
Seriously. Seriously. I mean, that was a good game to watch. It really was. And credit Texas State, man. They played their butts off, dude, and they looked good for just about 4 quarters, and then Arizona State just fought back. Sam Leavitt. I don't trust that Arizona State is going to be a player in the Big 12, but I'm very high on Kenny Dillingham moving forward after this season. So I think there's some really good things to take away from Arizona State in this out of conference slate. Really good things. Um, I'll bring up one more game before we have to move on because we probably should get moving on here. I mean, Arch Manning looked good. Arch Manning looked really good. I'll say it. Uh, Now I know it was against UTSA, and like UTSA is a team that I've said before is kind of on stinker alert. Not gonna lie, that is not a good football team at all. Jeff Traylor, sorry that he couldn't get a bigger job sooner. Just Frank Harris put in a lot of work for that program the last couple of years. Yeah, Arch Manning looked really good, and I'm not sure. I still would be concerned about the Texas team, right? If Quinn Ewers isn't available in the future, but yeah, I think moving forward in the years after Quinn Ewers, I think I can confidently say that Texas is in pretty good hands from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, especially if Quinn Ewers has to miss time. I mean, obviously Malik Murphy came in last year and did his thing. Obviously, looked pretty good. At certain times, they beat Kansas State and whatnot. But Arch Manning, yeah, I mean, those legs, obviously, everyone knows about him. And it was more about is he ready to play this year? If he does have to play extended periods of times, because we do know Quinn Ewers' history. Yeah, I'm all for it. Obviously, don't want to get hurt. Don't want Ewers to get hurt or be out because he is a special player and he is obviously represents the ceiling for Texas this year in winning a national title. But yeah, good for Texas. Good for Arch Manning, man. I'm actually happy for him because I know he gets a lot of hate for the old NCAA stuff and the football game or the video game really, and then obviously being named Arch Manning comes with its own responsibilities, and he looked good. Yeah, I'm with you there.
Move on. Let's go into the underdog games. We previewed, I guess, a little bit or just took, I guess. And the rule with these underdogs, if you're here for the first times, had to be a 10-point spread or greater. Thankfully for CD, North Texas was not at 10 by the time that we recorded this because they got absolutely spanked by Texas Tech. Huge get right game for Texas Tech. We're
Yep.
here to talk about the losers and the winners. My bad read was Purdue plus 330. I mean, that was Notre Dame. Talk about getting right on the defensive side of the football. I think they ran the ball well. Thought Riley Leonard didn't look all that impressive again, to be honest, despite them putting up 60 some points. But man, I mean, the defense was awesome. They made Hudson Card look absolutely garbage. They made him look garbage. And they ran the football effectively. I would imagine Notre Dame has a couple more Purdue's on their schedule. It also makes me feel good about our Purdue under 2.5 conference wins bet that we had at the beginning of the season. So we'll see. We'll monitor that one. The one that I've hit, or the one that I hit, and it's going to put me at 50% on the year through 3 weeks. Toledo plus 360. We already mentioned it before. Bang. They murdered Mississippi State. Murdered. That is a team on stink alert. And I don't think Toledo, I mean, before that, Tucker Gleason kind of struggled. They weren't able to run the ball a ton. Everything worked for Toledo against Mississippi State. Mississippi State is a bad football team. A bad football team. CD, you had UConn plus 610, and boy, was that close going into the fourth quarter. I
They were
was
winning.
they
Connecticut
were
was winning.
they were winning, and UConn almost snuck away with that one. That would have been probably our smelliest underdog uh, that we've picked in a while. But yeah, of course, Duke ends up sneaking that one out with Malik Murphy there. So I mean, did you end up catching some of that game, or were you just kind of monitoring it like I was?
I was more so monitoring, but I was a little bit disappointed to see Pagano not coming out there. I know, Ewers was or Evers was hurt and he came back and he's good on the ground, but I still thought their best chance to win was going to be Pagano. And yeah, but regardless, so it was fun. It was fun to watch. Obviously, I was like, oh gosh, it could happen. And then obviously it didn't happen. But to me, it was more a play, more not anti-Duke, but kind of anti-Duke. And I thought UConn had some of the makings of an upset bid team. My last one was Nevada at Minnesota. I was at that game. Obviously, for Minnesota and for me as a Minnesota fan, it looked pretty good. Nevada, I thought would be able to hang in there. They gave everyone fits this year. I thought even Brendan Lewis, as limited as he is, I thought he'd be able to give Minnesota trouble and ended up not. And he was terrible. And Minnesota got after him. Minnesota was really good in their secondary, making plays, opportunistic, all that good stuff. And then Darius Taylor is a monster. It's really good to see him healthy. And Brosmer looks in command, spreading the ball around. Obviously, it is Nevada, but still encouraging because Minnesota's got a big time game this week against Iowa.
Yeah. So I think overall, our underdog segment here, I think we made two good reads and two bad reads. I thought your UConn read was a fantastic read. Or the Toledo read was a fantastic read. And then maybe Purdue, Nevada, maybe a little bit too much for their britches, right? But on the season, we're still hitting 25% on these, which is actually incredible. So that is
Hmm.
above what we should be, given that these are all over 10-point spreads. So I'm gonna say good job for us. Good job for us. We're sniping games. You haven't hit one yet, but you've been really dang close on some gigantic spreads.
Yep,
So
we're waiting.
we're waiting. So I love that. And sometimes too, audience, I do sometimes give my picks in before CD. So sometimes I do steal some from him. So we try to make four different picks. So we should actually probably just do like a draft. Like we just draft four teams. That's probably how we should do
Yeah,
it. But
no,
sometimes
no,
I sneak them in.
a
But
win's a win for the show. What's good for you? What's is good for the show?
yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So you were in the green this week if you took Toledo plus 360. Speaking of green, I'm back in the green, baby. From the counter, I went 3-2. You went 1-2. So overall, we were 4-4 for the week. Bad read by me. Arkansas minus 24. What the heck was that? A read that was bad for me, but that I honestly though thought and watched the game and would take a game. We'll talk about more later. LSU, South Carolina under 50.5. Some explosive plays. Honestly, is really what did that in, and some turnovers as well. So yeah, I'll take that in. Indiana minus 2.5. Bang. What a read. Memphis plus 7.5. Bang. What a read. Air Force Baylor under 42.5. Not even a sweat was Air Force terrible. So those are my three wins. CD for you, you took LSU minus 7. That did not hit. Nevada plus 16.5 did not hit. Cincinnati minus 2.5. They look good. They looked really good against Miami, Ohio. And it actually, the score is not even indicative of that because they had a fumble through the back of the end zone. So it actually should have been worse about Cincinnati. That was a good read from you. So that was one that I wanted to take, but didn't have the gonads like you to take it. Uh, so yeah, where did you go wrong? I guess I went wrong in thinking that Arkansas was a change team. That Taylor Green was just we were just gonna see his highs. We weren't gonna see his lows, and that UAB was a terrible team. That was my terrible read. All right. Do you feel bad about these, or would you take them again?
Listen, I mean, I I was wrong about LSU. I was wrong about South Carolina's offense being able to stick with LSU. I liked LSU's defense, improving. I thought I'd get some value there with Vegas, and then also that offense is, obviously really good. So I thought they would be able to outscore South Carolina and not let them keep it close. I was wrong about that. Credit South Carolina probably should have and could have won that football game. We'll talk about that later. But
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Nevada ended up not quite being as good as what I thought they would be offensively in this game, and Minnesota kind of handled business. So credit to them for that. Don't mind that as a Minnesota fan, it happens. But yeah, Cincinnati, love that pick. Very happy it cashed for me to get a little bit of momentum this week and building up to next week.
All righty. So on the year, you are 2-5. Not worried though. I mean, you've only taken 7 bets, so That's just the volatility of only taking 7 bets. I'm 10-9 currently on the season. Barely scraping the green there, but we'll take it after a pretty horrendous week 1 for me. So yeah, I was 2-5 after week 1. So you're not even in a bad spot. You're not in a bad spot at all. Moving on to the games that we previewed. Uh, Picking straight up winners. I was 6-2 in the 8 games that we previewed. My only losses: Arizona and West Virginia. ATS, I was 4-4. The losses there came from Arizona, LSU, West Virginia, and Missouri. And for you, you were 5-3 picking winners this week. Your losers were West Virginia, Washington, and TCU. And ATS, you were 2-6. Your losses there were Arizona, LSU, West Virginia, Washington, TCU, and Missouri. So let's just get into it. Arizona, Kansas State. I made a horrible read here. I know you took Arizona to cover this spread as well, but look, Kansas State is just a much fuller football team. They do more things well. And I thought that the superstar talent for Arizona was maybe going to outweigh Kansas State late in the game. And yeah, sure, we saw Arizona superstar talent. We saw Ted McMillan look awesome this game for the most part. And Kansas State, all they did was just run the ball. And I thought Avery Johnson's struggles might catch up to them eventually. But guess what? It didn't matter because they were really effective on the ground and they controlled this football game. I know Arizona's time of possession, they had like 30 minutes to Kansas State's 29, but Kansas State was really good. All right. They were a much better team than Arizona was. Kansas State was 7-13 on third down. They only had 3 penalties. They played a clean game, no turnovers. That's how you win a football game, right? That is how you win a football game. And Kansas State got it done. I'm going to have to reevaluate the way that I looked at this team previous to the season. I think their defense is better than I thought that they would be. I don't think I think Avery Johnson is fine. I think he's capable of winning football games. I haven't seen him do anything crazy yet. And their run game has just been awesome with DJ Giddens. So I'm liking this Kansas State football team moving forward. Moving forward for Arizona, yeah, I'm concerned a little bit about their defense. And I'm concerned about how potentially one-dimensional Arizona is. I know they were missing Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt, but I don't think that was exactly why you couldn't run the football. So yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about Arizona moving forward.
Yeah, we've seen some injuries happen for Arizona's offensive line and their running game, obviously, with
Mm-hmm.
that run with the running back. So that could be it. It obviously takes some pressure off of Fafita and McMillan because those guys are incredible. But again, you cannot be, like Matthew said, just kind of two-dimensional or two players. It's 11 players going on, and Kent State was the better 11 players. And on most every play of this game, obviously, if you told me Kansas State was going to be able to run the ball for 200 plus yards, I would have felt really good about their chances at home, and they didn't. And obviously, Arizona has to get things right, figure things out once they do get into conference play, because I believe this was not a conference game,
It
correct?
wasn't. Yeah. So
So I guess no harm, no foul in conference. But again, they're going to have to figure out some stuff because, Utah, you go on the road to Utah, and then Texas Tech looks better. BYU has been a little bit of a surprise this year. So they're going to have to figure things out and figure things out quickly for them to be able to bounce back in this, Big 10 or Big 12, excuse me. I do still want to see a little bit more from Avery Johnson. I He's really good. And if he can have 110 yards on the ground every game, that is awesome. But if you're going to be Kansas State and you want to compete for a Big 12 title game and you want to be able to win a playoff game, right? He's going to have to do more than just be on his legs. He's got to be dynamic through the air. And we'll see. He had some nice long throws, but again, consistency. And you saw some freshman mistakes like the end of the first half. Like that just happens, right? Like should have stepped out of bounds or not take a sack. Like it was just things like that that hopefully with experience kind of does get corrected. But again, a win is a win, and you won by 24, so you can't be too mad against one of the contenders in your conference. So if you're Chris Kleiman and Kansas State, obviously things to work on, which is good. But again, you get the win.
moving on to Alabama, Wisconsin. We were both on it. We both took Alabama to win and cover, get right. Did I anticipate Tyler Van Dyke getting hurt? No, I did not. But I also think it maybe didn't matter.
Yeah.
Wisconsin struggled offensively big time. Alabama, honestly, I thought they were fine. It's always like, oh, this team was so explosive. Like you don't have to depend on the explosive play. Yeah, but also they're capable. Clearly, the past 3 weeks we've seen them have all these explosive plays. Ryan Williams is awesome. Some critiques for Alabama. I would like to see them get the run game going with people not named Jalen Milroe. I understand that Jan Miller had a nice run, right? But I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him and Justice Haynes like get 15 carries a game. Like come on, like I said, you're looking at a game where you win by 32, but they only had 11 carries. It's like, and Jalen Milroe himself had 14. I just don't want to be so dependent on Jalen Milroe in the ground game. And I know that they were 8 for 14 on third downs, but let's find a way that you could work this passing game without having it just being explosive plays from Ryan Williams or Jeremy Bernard. So, but
Well,
overall, a good
and
game from Bama, and LT Overton was fantastic.
he was awesome. Listen, when I took the over for Alabama, my reasoning is they have a ton of talent on that defensive line. None of it's proven yet, but I just was banking on one of those 5 stars to be able to come out and make some plays. And obviously today was Overton. And so we'll see how that kind of goes. Quay Rousseau has been solid as well. But you're right, though, about running the football because it's not sustainable. The way that their offense is moving the ball right now in terms of explosive plays, if you are going to be an explosive play football team through the air, you have to be able to consistently run the football because otherwise, play action pass, otherwise, things like that will not work. And if teams can kind of just blanket coverage you and make you go dissect them and you're not able to run the ball, you're going to really, really struggle down to down. That is where some of the concern does come from because, again, I mean, you mentioned it they didn't have a ton of those long extended drives. I thought the first drive was nice, ended up in a missed field goal, obviously, with the new kicker, but
Uh, Lou Graw's a award-winning kicker.
that apparently they tampered with, which I'm sure happened. But regardless, though, we know how good Ryan Williams is, and he's only going to continue to get better throughout his career, which is super, super exciting. And as for Wisconsin, though, I mean, I think you're not surprised with the outcome of the score, but I think that in lies the problem because they have looked so poor this year. And we thought it was going to be maybe a tough year for them, especially with a tough schedule. But dang, man, you were hoping Luke Fickell and whoever else was going to be able to help them improve this year and to be more competitive in these games because you have USC, right, in a couple of weeks. You've got Penn State, you have Oregon and Nebraska. Those are very, very good football teams that you want as Wisconsin to be able to compete in those games, right? You don't have to win all of them, but at least be able to compete, feel like you belong. And they just did not belong on the field with Alabama. But again, great environment. Got a hats off to them. And I know our parents were there having a good time. And it was pretty cool to see. But regardless, not an ideal outcome for Wisconsin. But again, for Alabama, really good showing after struggling last week to USF. Wisconsin goes down, gets a field goal, and you're thinking, well, we could have a game here. And then all of a sudden, Bama went touchdown, punt, but touchdown. It had 3 touchdowns to end the second half or in the first half, excuse me, and really be able to kind of separate. And once that happened, like Wisconsin had no chance to come back because of how they do struggle to push the ball down the field.
LSU South Carolina was an awesome game to watch. I would say, look, should South Carolina have won that game because that was not a penalty on Kyle Kennard? Yeah, it really wasn't. And I'm sure LSU fans are going to be pissed at me saying that. But I also think that LSU played well enough that, like, I think LSU should have, like, if they were to play again, I would also take LSU to win and cover. All right, we both took them. Obviously, LSU didn't cover the 7 that we picked this game at. I think it was 6 or 6.5 when the kickoff happened. But yeah, I mean, I don't think South Carolina is going to be able to have that many explosive run plays, like in a game. I'm not sure if they're could consistently have that if they're to play LSU again, right? I do think LSU found something in Caden Durham, the true freshman running back. I mean, Josh Williams and Caleb Jackson were not exactly doing it, and Caden Durham looked really good. So that was very nice for LSU. On the opposite spectrum of that, South Carolina's defensive line. We knew they were going to have a battle with this LSU football team, but holy cow, did they cause problems for Garrett Nussmeier?
Yeah.
Problems. I mean, if you're causing problems to LSU's offensive line in the pass protection game, like I can only imagine what the South Carolina defensive line is going to do to some other teams that are just not ready. That are just not ready in the same way that this LSU offensive line was. Yeah, Garrett Nussmeier, Sure, South Carolina should have won this game on the pick six. I do think Garrett Nussmeier bounced back in the second half. I thought he played really well and did enough for his team to win the football game. Yeah, some penalties hurt South Carolina late. I mean, they had 13 for 123, right? And also three turnovers. I know Lenore Sellers got hurt as well. And that offense looked a lot different with Robbie Ashford in the game than with Lenore Sellers. But overall, I don't feel worse about either team. If anything, I'm concerned about LSU's run defense for sure, but I was already pretty concerned about that, not gonna lie. Yeah, I thought South Carolina, their defense, I think proved to everyone this week that they are absolutely for real.
Yes, yes. And quick note on Sellers, it sounds like it's not serious. Now they do have Akron next week and then a bye, and then they get Ole Miss. So they do have time to kind of get settled in. But again, Akron will be a nice game to play for Sellers to be able to develop, his passing game. We've kind of seen it be clunky for 3 weeks now. But again, I said it after last week and I'll say it again. Nobody in the SEC, especially at the top of the SEC, wants to play South Carolina. I
Nope.
think they scare every single coach. I think most of the teams as well. And if you're a fan bases of Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma, A&M, Missouri, Clemson, you do not want to see them on your schedule. And it's just always there in the back of your mind that you're going to have to play this defensive line. But again, oh man, it was tough. It was frustrating. And I kind of do think if they were to play this game again, and now maybe if Sellers doesn't get hurt, it's a different outcome. But I still like my LSU pick, and
I
I
did
got to
too.
give credit to Brian Kelly and the resiliency he talked about with what they had. Um, but yeah, I still think LSU is just really happy to just go in and get a win. They don't care if they didn't cover or if it wasn't pretty all the time, but they got to win and they can kind of, move past it. Obviously, you're 1-1 against USC's. So actually, yeah, you're 1-1 against USC. So that is what it is. And you get UCLA, who's terrible, and South Alabama,
So
who's not
bad.
great either. And so you get time to kind of settle in before really the meat and potatoes of your schedule does start in October. But yeah, good win, great game, like you mentioned. The SEC, South Carolina put on a show. Game day was there, great atmosphere. Obviously, the product on the field was incredible as well. Yeah, just still waiting for Jared Brown, still waiting for Sellers to get there, and then obviously I I
Playing
kind of
from
chalk up.
behind. Oh, sorry.
No, you go for it. You go for it.
Should say playing from behind is not something that South Carolina is going to be able to do well. But I also think like I'm not sold on their run game. I know it was explosive at times in this football game, but being 3 for 12 on third down is not conducive to allowing you to close out a football game,
Yeah.
and they depended on a long run from Lenore Sellers, a long run from Rocket Sanders. It was a bummer, yes, that well, both pick sixes. The first one was a horse collar, all right. I should have gotten called back, but the second one, yeah, it was a bummer that it got called back, right? Because that probably seals the deal for South Carolina. Like LSU's not going to go down and score twice. So yeah, that was pretty brutal for South Carolina. But look, heads are high. Absolutely. Heads are very high. I thought South Carolina played gutsy, just some penalties, turnovers, and maybe passing offense is obviously still an issue, and LSU's receivers are talented. I'm not necessarily down on South Carolina's secondary either. I just thought it was impressive that LSU was able to score, and also they got some nice field positions too. Like South Carolina had a lot of 3-and-outs. There's only so much that Kai Kroger can do as a punter, despite being a good punter. Yeah, it was good game from both of these teams. I'm not selling my stock on either team. In fact, I'm definitely holding my South Carolina stock that I bought early in the season.
Yeah.
Texas A&M versus Florida. Um, my thoughts on this game, and we said it before, that Graham Mertz was probably the quarterback that was going to give Florida the best chance to win this football game. And if he had played the entire game, I can't say for sure that Florida would have won because A&M got out to a pretty sizable lead early, and Graham Mertz didn't look fantastic early, and they couldn't run the ball. Montreal Johnson had negative yards. Um, it's a Yeah, I think Florida's defense looked really bad, really, really bad. This is the second straight game that A&M's run for over 300 yards, which hasn't happened since 2012, Johnny Manziel year, and that's not good. That's not good for Florida. All right, Marshall Reed on Texas A&M side. Marshall Reed looked good, and he got his first 2 sacks of the year. Marcus Ratcliffe continues to be incredible, and we talked about him on this show for a while. Literally since he's been on San Diego State, we talked about Marcus Ratcliffe on the show and how good he is. A&M penalties were an issue, but dominating the time of possession 37 minutes to 22 is quite frankly embarrassing for Florida. So good job to A&M going in, breaking that road streak, going into Gainesville. Not an easy place to go into, and kind of laying the wood on Florida. Kind of laying the wood. So it'll be interesting to watch this A&M team moving forward. And as for Florida, yeah, this team could be in trouble.
Yeah, yeah. I go on everything you said. In terms of bigger picture, I just still kind of learning more and more about Florida, and maybe they aren't quite good this year, and I think it might show with that
A lot of
schedule.
injuries on the defense, though. Lots, especially in the
Yes,
secondary.
yes. So we'll see what happens there. But and I know you didn't have to throw the football, and you looked fine doing it at times. But again, like Noah Thomas having 2 yards is something that I continue to scratch my head. It's like, where is he? What is going on behind the scenes? Is it up to Colin Klein to get him more involved? Is it him? Is it the quarterbacks? What may it be?
I don't know.
Regardless, though, I guess you can't be too nitpicky after a big time win on the road, first win on the road in a long, long time. Obviously, just kind of an exhale for A&M after struggling in Notre Dame. If Notre Dame goes and loses to freaking Northern Illinois, then you get your win, you get Bowling Green, and then you can kind of settle in for obviously rivalry game against Arkansas and a pretty tough October. And then also and not for A&M, but hopefully, Wigman's healthy. I I still believe that Wigman gives you the best chance as A&M to win and reach your ceiling this year. But again, very excited about Reed and his future and the potential that he showed last year, but also this year as well in this game going on the road. That was tough. But yeah, we'll see. Interesting Florida. What do you do with Lagway and Mertz? I know neither of them looked good, to be honest. But next week is a week you have to win. Like you have to beat
They're
Mississippi
not going
State.
to. Oh no, Mississippi State. Sorry, that UCF's next week, the week after that, right?
You see, they'll have a bye, so that's not until October 5th,
Okay.
which is good. But that might be a time where you see a transition there, whether it be a head coach or quarterback. Regardless, though, these next 2 games for Florida are massively important and the future of that program, not only with Billy Napier, but whoever is coaching the team next year, whether it's Napier or someone else. But it's just still a little bit disappointing to see how flat you came out again. Second straight time in a big home game, you coming out flat.
Yeah, I still think Mertz gives his team the best chance to win down to down, game to game. And I think you saw that this week a little bit. I don't think Lagway did not look good. He was uncomfortable. Granted, it was a good defensive line. But and moving forward, like you said with the wide receivers, there's one wide receiver. Actually, in fact, there's one player on the team with over 50 receiving yards. That's not good. That is not good. You need to find ways to get those guys involved. And you've had 3 straight games where you haven't reached 200 passing yards. You're not going to be running for 300 yards every single game. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. So, got to figure out something offensively. Colin Klein.
Colin Klein would love that.
Yeah, Colin Klein would love that for sure. He would love that. Let's talk about the backyard brawl here. West Virginia looked good. I mean, they found a way. They battled in there and they had a lead late. And then Pitt, and we talked about it. You said it here. We both took West Virginia to win cover, but you said it. You were like, look, between these 2 quarterbacks right now in what we've seen this season, would you trust Eli Holstein to go use his arm to win a football game, or would you trust Garrett Green? And the answer was, we got that answer. And the answer was Eli Holstein, shockingly. So I didn't think Eli Holstein was a good quarterback going into the season, and I've kind of been proven wrong this far.
Yeah.
Garrett Green, on that last possession, threw 4 straight passes straight at Pitt defenders. His arm is just not good enough. And I've been high on Garrett Green. And I still believe that West Virginia can win football games with him, but they weren't able to get Jaheim White the way that they want to or need to be able to win this football game. Still putting up 34 points, though. The 2 turnovers was tough. I think did they take 5 sacks that game? I mean, just not good. And Pitt wasn't very disciplined. They had over 100 penalty yards. It's not like Pitt wasn't trying to lose this football game either. 1 of 8 on 3rd down for Pitt. But overall, it was Eli Holstein came out and won this game. Pitt is 3-0.
Yeah, which I would have said 1-2 going into the season, and gotta credit him. And 3 straight weeks of Eli Holstein going over 300 yards. 2 straight weeks of them looking really good in that second half and getting a big time win against, obviously a power four opponent there. And in this one, a rivalry game. Yeah, I just nothing to say but credit to Pittsburgh because again, very, very surprised in how well they're playing right now. Will it last? We will see, but their schedule is pretty manageable. In that ACC, I think there's a lot of winnable football games, especially if you are throwing the ball the way that you are right now with that offense, new offense coordinator, all that good stuff. And for West Virginia, man, I mean, obviously Penn State, you don't expect to win that football game, but you would like to have been more competitive. And this was a game that you really wanted to win because it does not get much easier in
No,
October with Oklahoma State, Iowa State, and Kansas State, even Arizona. Even though Kansas lost last week, I still feel good about them. I think they're going to fix what they need to do wrong, what they're doing wrong with Jalen Daniels, regardless. So, Garrett Green, 16 for 30, 210, two touchdowns, two interceptions, only 49 yards on the ground. It was not his day. It was not his day, even though, and it
I
was
know they
not all
scored
in the
34
offense.
points.
They scored 34 points, but again, when they needed him, it just wasn't quite there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll head over to the Apple Cup and look at this Washington State team, and they're winning football games right now. But John Mateer, they're winning football games. They go, I mean, it wasn't on the road, but it was in Seattle, right? It was at Lumen Field. And they just got it done, dude. They just got it done. They won that football game. Will Rogers was not enough. And yeah, I'm sorry. This Washington State football team is kind of putting in work right now. And I would anticipate with the rest of their schedule that they're gonna make a bowl game. And look, if you want to look at the rest of their schedule, all right, hold on, pulling it up right now. They play Boise State on the road, but then after that, and Oregon State on the road, they find ways to win those football games. I mean, you're looking at a Washington State team that could make a real case to be the G5 representative because they
Here's my
are
question.
in a
It,
conference.
so how does that work? Because it's like the highest conference champion, right? That's non-power.
Well,
So do
I
they
think the
qualify?
I think the Washington State Oregon State game, I would assume that the winner of that game is just the winner of the conference, right?
I
You
guess
know?
we have to look more into that. But yeah, September 28th, that game against Boise State, if they win that football game, they are going to have a resume that includes beating Texas Tech, Washington, Boise State, and among others in the Mountain West there. Why not? Why not? And by the way, you
Not
cannot
that
be
they
more
actually
happy.
can compete in the national championship, but still.
I mean, you're beating Boise State. We saw what Boise State did do Oregon. Who knows? Who knows? Obviously, let's just celebrate the win here for, Jake Dickert, who we love here, and for Washington moving forward, man. This was one you would love to have to try to make a bowl game this year. And now looking at your schedule there, with the way Indiana's playing, right, with the way Rutgers runs the football, you're gonna have some tough matchups there, and you're gonna have to be able to, you know, consistently score. I mean, they looked good, right? And they threw for a ton of yards, they ran it for a ton of yards, but they just 4 for 13 on third down. Obviously the 0 for 1 on fourth down, but it was weird. I was watching the game and I was like, when is Washington gonna just be kind of breaking away here? Like the way that they were moving the football and running the ball to Jonah Coleman. I just thought eventually it would kind of just break open, and it didn't. And I guess credit Washington State for that. But for Jed Fish, this is one you would love to have in year one.
Yeah, I mean, if you're box score sniping, you're like, okay, like Washington could have, won this game. I don't know. I mean, I'm not ready to sell any stock on Washington, to be honest. Well, one, I didn't have a lot of stock to begin with. I think we talked about this preseason that this team is probably gonna have to fight to make a bowl game based on like the decimation of their roster. from last year's season, which, we've seen runners up in national championship teams that relied heavily on the transfer portal go into the next season and struggle. You're looking at, I mean, I would put Florida State in that category as well, a team that was college football playoff caliber that relied on the transfer portal and it's now in a tough spot, you know? I don't know. I don't know, man. It's tough. Um, Will Rogers is taking care of the football thus far. They're throwing for 300 yards per game. I don't see this as a Will Rogers problem. I really don't. Um,
I think it's just the realities of it's a first year coach, and it was kind
yeah,
of late in the cycle too. Like I think they're still learning about each other, learning the culture, and look at developing an identity. And Washington State's a team that's been together for 3 years now. This is Jake Dickett's third year, and they're kind of getting there, and they looked a little bit more put together, especially when it mattered in that second half.
yeah. Also, too, they're not top 50 in third down percentage. They're not top 50 in fourth down percentage. They're not top 50 in red zone percentage. So I think it's just more about finishing drives that result in points. And yeah, I mean they're 7.6 yards per play as a team. I mean that's pretty good. They're just not converting when they need to convert. And I think that's why I'm not selling any stock on this team. I think this team is going to be fine. I think they're better than I thought that they were going to be this season, honestly, even after this loss. So I'm still okay. Not selling on Washington or anything. But moving on, UCF TCU. What do we say? UCF has an identity. It is run the football. And you talked about it. You were like, look, if KJ Jefferson has to throw 30 passes, are they winning this football game? The answer is no, probably not. And they never went away from it. They never went away from it, ever. Credit Gus Malzahn for just
Yeah.
showing up. They're running for 375 yards per game through 3 games. They're averaging 6.8 yards per carry. They have 13 rushing touchdowns. All of those are top 10 in the country right now. Defensively, they also have a top 20 run defense, too. They're only letting up 2.5 yards per carry, and that's concerning for TCU as well. Moving forward, I think Josh Hoover is playing awesome so far this season. But I think in games like against Stanford, like against UCF, and I know we know that UCF's defensive line's way underrated, way underrated. But Josh Hoover can't do everything for this offense, and these receivers can't do everything for this offense. So I'm looking
And tight
forward.
end.
and and tight end. I'm looking forward. They're 115th in yards per game rushing. They're 111th in yards per carry, but they're top 15 in every passing statistic. I mean, and Josh Hoover's also, guess what he's done? He's taken care of the football so far this season.
And
So, which I didn't think was going to be the case. So something needs to get fixed with that run defense. Um, I know Andy Avalos is all right, but we talked about it. KJ Jefferson did enough. I mean, really, it was three guys. It was Hudson, it was KJ Jefferson, and RJ Harvey. And, normally you can't win games with that, but when an offensive line is as good as they are with UCF and that scheme is conducive to them winning the football game, UCF wins football games, man. And I intend them. I I think they're going to be a problem for teams moving forward.
yeah, I think this is more about, oh yeah, UCF has kind of arrived in the Big 12. It's not really about, TCU, I think, taking a step back to where we thought they were going to be. Hoover looked good, right? The defense made plays at times, but again, like UCF is going to outrush teams a lot this year in the Big 12. My problem is like you said, 17 rushes, 58 yards is not what you want to do, especially at home, and trying to keep the ball away from UCF, right? And try to get them out of their identity. Because if you are shrinking the game, if they have to be a little bit more conscious about their play calling and decision makings and maybe pressing. And that's where we've seen KJ Jefferson and Gus Malzahn let teams sometimes get into trouble. But listen, they were able to stick to their identity with RJ Harvey, stick to their identity with KJ Jefferson. And it's not that KJ Jefferson cannot make plays because he can through the air. He did on that last drive and throughout the game. He had 3 touchdowns, all of them big. And obviously that last 10 play, 72-yard drive. But here's the thing is like, it was an identity. They got the ball with 3 minutes to go, and they had to go the length of the field, 70 plus yards, right? And they opened up with three straight rushings because they knew exactly who they were, and they were not going to let TCU, take them away from their identity. Even on 3rd and 6 with a little of 2 minutes to go, they still ran the football. Yeah, you gotta credit UCF, and TCU had a chance to put the ball away, and they just couldn't. And obviously, they went down and had a chance to win ugh, hit a field goal and it didn't quite work out. But hey, hats off to UCF and what they can do in this conference. I think TCU will learn from this. I think TCU will get better and better. And with their schedule, I see some winnable football games for them. Absolutely. And UCF, same goes for them too. I still think both these teams I think might be playing better come November than they are playing right now, which is good, I think, for both fan bases.
Talk about Missouri, Boston College. Um, yeah, Boston College hung their hats in this game, and honestly, if you box score snipe this, you're like, okay, Missouri probably should have won this game by more, right? But it was early on. Missouri was not able to capitalize putting the ball in the end zone early. They weren't able to do it. And Boston College had a couple explosive plays. That was the difference in that first half. In the second half, Missouri's defense kind of shored up there. They looked good, forced a couple turnovers. Uh, and then Missouri's offense did enough. Luther Burden finally got going after kind of having a quiet first couple games. They needed Nate Noel was awesome. Um, I'm not concerned about Missouri after this game. I kind of expected a little bit of a better performance, and I think Boston College has shown that. Look, I know it's Florida State, um, but I think Boston College is ready to hang around with some teams. I think that defensive line is giving people more problems than they probably anticipated.
Yeah, I got to give Missouri credit here. Obviously, Boston College deserves for making a fight, putting up a fight in that fourth quarter, even though they were down a couple scores. But with Missouri getting the ball back with almost 4 minutes to go at the end of the game, after Boston College just scored to cut it to 6 points, and they rode Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll, and obviously Luther Burden had a nice third down catch there to extend that drive. But it was just good to see, I think, Missouri be able to run the ball like that when they have to, because obviously we love the weapons Missouri has. We love Luther Burden. Mookie Cooper's really good. Theo Wace is really, really good. Norfleet's not bad as well. Plus the talented receivers, the young guys behind those guys. And obviously, Brady Cook has proven himself as a legit SEC quarterback, but it was about replacing, um, and I'm forgetting his name right there, the stud last year, the running back for Missouri. Um, but in Nate Noel and Marcus
Schrader.
Carroll, too. Thank you, Garrett. Yeah, thank you. Uh, and so replacing Noel or with Noel and Carroll, having those guys play well was really encouraging. Really, really encouraging.
I agree.
But real quick, Boston College, in terms of just like looking at the end of the game, it's like they only had 49 yards rushing. Like there was no chance they were going to win that football game with only 49 yards rushing. Now they got lucky with, like you said, with some explosive plays early on. But in terms of being able to compete in this football game, you had to be able to stick to your identity and be able to run the ball on the road, and they couldn't quite do it. And that obviously hurt them in the long run.
So did. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to our week 3 recap. Um, can't wait to get into week 4. That preview will hopefully be posted in the next couple days. Keep sticking with us, guys. We appreciate the likes, we appreciate the comments, we appreciate the subscribes as well. Look, if you agree with us, let us know in the comments. If you don't agree with us, let us know in the comments. Some of you guys are, you know, closer with these teams than even we are, right? But we're here to give our thoughts and our analysis on all of these games. So, or if there's a game that you want us to see preview next week, or you want us to talk about, we'd be happy to talk about it. So just let us know in the comments. We appreciate y'all so much. If you're listening on Spotify, we appreciate you guys too. Just give us a nice little follow and a 5-star review. You can do that for us. So thank you. CD, anything for us on the way out?
No, I want to echo all that. Appreciate you guys for watching. Hope you're enjoying college football as much as we are this year. And thanks for sticking around with us.
We'll see y'all in the next one.